Hello everyone, welcome to another brand new episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast. We are on episode number 15. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. Welcome to the podcast that houses a safe and open listening platform, an open forum for casual, hot and cold, and even dumb takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports. And we got a good show for you all today. And when I mean good show, I mean we're finally going to talk about some NFL after what? 1 month of not talking about it. Yeah, it's been a long time. It really feels like a long time since I talked to some NFL, since the end of the Super Bowl. But it feels good to finally talk some football and not talk about wrestling for a little bit, just for a little bit. Because why? Well, it's a new league year. Yes, it is. The start of NFL free agency, the start of trades and all that, and the countdown to the NFL draft is officially upon us. The countdown, the real countdown to the regular season is underway, and we just have to wait a little bit longer for the regular season. But we're just 1 month away from the NFL draft. But today, I want to talk to you all about my early thoughts about NFL free agency, and later on, we'll specifically talk about my thoughts on the San Francisco 49ers free agency so far. So a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the biggest signings, in my opinion, the biggest trades that happened so far in free agency. And again, we're going to talk about the 49ers and their free agency so far. So if you haven't already, make sure you are subscribed. If you're watching the vodcast here on YouTube, make sure you turn on that notification bell so you can be notified of each and every episode that goes up. And if you missed one of my most recent videos, I did a random review of the Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa unsanctioned match on the St. Patrick's Day edition of AEW Dynamite. For all you wrestling fans out there, even if you're not a wrestling fan, I would recommend you check it out. Because it was one crazy bloodbath. Go check it out if you want to check more of my YouTube content. If you want to support the audio version of this podcast, because you want to listen to me on the road or going for a walk outside or during your workout, then you can listen to me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor FM. I'm on those platforms as well. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at Very Cold Lasagna, as well as Instagram, that same user handle. Support me any way you can. I do want to grow this platform as much as possible. I know it's been slow, but that's how it is. That's the name of the game. Slow growth as you start. We're 2 months in, and I really like doing this. I really like doing this podcast since January, and of course expanding on not just the podcast, but doing stuff these little video topical things. And yeah, I really want to make this a thing, not I want to do this full time, but really commit to this channel. I haven't really done that ever on YouTube or any kind of media platform, but I really feel like I want to commit to this. So with that out of the way, let's talk some NFL free agency, shall we? So some of the biggest signings that happened around the league, we'll talk about around the league, then we'll get to the 49ers. It actually happened way back in January, right before the Super Bowl, a week before. So the biggest signing that happened way back in January, in case you forgot, I actually pretty much forgot. I don't know if I even talked about it here in the channel, but I don't think I have. I think I talked about it on my Twitter. But in case you forgot, the Detroit Lions sent their franchise quarterback, or no longer franchise quarterback, Matthew Stafford, to the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for the Rams quarterback, Jared Goff. So just like that, the Rams' supposed franchise quarterback, Jared Goff, is getting shipped to Motown. So the Rams are getting Matthew Stafford, and the Lions are getting Jared Goff, a 2021 third-round pick, first-round picks in 2022 and 2023. So that was the first big trade, and initially I thought this was going to be this big quarterback carousel that was going to happen during the offseason. Maybe it will. Maybe we'll still have it, but that remains to be seen. But another QB trade that happened a week after the Super Bowl was the Philadelphia Eagles sending their former second overall pick, so the quarterback that was drafted after Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. Yeah, Carson Wentz, the Philadelphia Eagles' supposed franchise quarterback, who had a really good 2017 MVP season before he got hurt in that Rams game in Week 14. And you know what happened with the Eagles there. Nick Foles took them to the Super Bowl and actually won the MVP instead of Carson Wentz. So Carson Wentz is going to the Indianapolis Colts, and the Eagles in exchange are getting a 2021 third round pick and a conditional 2022 second round pick. And if you want to know my thoughts on these two trades, keep listening to this. Keep listening to this. So from that point on, nothing too much happened. I guess we just had to wait until free agency started to pick up, get rolling, and well, free agency was upon us. The 2 days before, the big moves started to take shape because that's when the legal tampering period began to happen. In case you don't know what the legal tampering period is, much like I don't, I'm just filthy casual that wants to know what the heck is going on. Pretty much all the unrestricted free agents, they come together, talk to a bunch of teams that they're interested in, and they can start talking to the teams that they want to talk to and maybe come up with a deal. Let's make a deal, So that happened 2 days before the actual start of the new league year, and there were a bunch of them. There are a bunch of deals that happened, with the exception of one. Let's talk about the biggest one that happened the week before free agency started, and then we'll get into the stuff that actually happened during free agency. Sorry about that. So the biggest one that happened so far was the Dallas Cowboys. They finally got their deal done. They finally had their deal done with Dak Prescott, their long-term quarterback. I can't call him franchise yet because he's yet to win something other than a wild card playoff game. So they re-signed Dak Prescott to a 4-year, $160 million deal, which is insane. And the deal includes a no franchise tag, no trade clause in them. So pretty much the Cowboys can't trade him. They can't put the franchise tag on him. None of that. So finally, after all this standstill and last season with the franchise tag on Dak, they finally came together and got a deal done. I have some thoughts on that too, but we talk some winners and losers in free agency so far. And speaking of some thoughts, Arizona Cardinals, the NFC West division rivals, they signed former Houston Texans pass rusher J.J. Watt to a 2-year, $31 million deal. So the Cardinals are trying to beef up their defensive line because I mentioned, I think it was in the very first episode that they needed some pass rushing help. And while I thought J.J. Watt could be a solution, he should also stay healthy. So I think this was a 50-50 sign, but I'll talk more about the Cardinals in my winners and losers portion of the show. And the Cardinals also signed former Bengals wide receiver AJ Green. AJ Green's taking I want to prove something. I want to prove I can still play even at a old age. AJ Green's taking a 1-year, $6 million1 and the Cardinals also traded for the Las Vegas Raiders center Rodney Hudson. Apparently, he's one of the top centers in the league. So we'll see how he plays out with the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are also getting a 2021 7th round pick in exchange. They're sending the Raiders a 2021 3rd round pick. So interesting, but. Here's the thing. They didn't spend, out of all the teams that I mentioned so far, they didn't spend as big as, well, the then most hated team in the league, the New England Patriots, because they had about $69 million in cap space. That's like the third most. The most team that had it was, I think it was the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was either them or the New York Jets. I can't remember, but it was like the Jaguars and the Patriots had the most money to spend in free agency, and like literally right when the legal tampering period started, 2 days before free agency began, Bill Belichick and the Patriots were just like, you get a contract, you get a deal, you get a contract, you get a deal, everybody gets a deal. New England went on this spending spree with their big wad of $69 million. Yeah, 69. So they re-signed quarterback Cam Newton to a 1-year, $13 million deal. So I guess Cam Newton wants to prove he could still play in this league. But they weren't done there yet. They signed receivers Nelson Aguilar, who was previously with the Las Vegas Raiders. Aguilar received a 2-year, $26 million deal, and they snatched up Kendrick Warren from the San Francisco 49ers. So Bourne received a 3-year, $22 million deal. So, good luck to Bourne in New England. And the Patriots signed two tight ends. So they're going back to that 2 tight end set. They're going to sign Jonnu Smith, whose deal is around 4 years, $50 million. And Hunter Henry, who was with the LA Chargers previously, is signing a 3-year, $37 million deal. They weren't done here yet, so they had to beef up that offensive line. So they traded for the Raiders. So the Raiders are literally losing a lot of pieces on their offensive line. So they got Trent Brown. The Patriots got Trent Brown, but they had to send a 2022 5th-round pick to the Vegas Raiders. And they also got a center named Ted Karras on a 1-year, $4 million deal. So they got some pieces on offense, and then they weren't done there yet. They went to defense. Some notable names include safety Jalen Mills from the Philadelphia Eagles. He got a 4-year, $24 million contract. They also bringing back linebacker Kyle Van Noy from the Miami Dolphins, who's getting a 2-year, $13 million deal. And they're getting a bunch of other players here too, but there's too many to list. But they've been spending. They've been spending that stimulus check. They've been spending that stimulus salary cap that they've been getting. But I'll talk about how they're doing, how these moves are paying off for them so far. So speaking of Tom Brady's old team, Tom Brady's new team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they've been doing some moves to get that core retained, to make a repeat run for the Super Bowl. So they re-signed their key piece on defense, linebacker Shaq Barrett, to a 4-year, $70 million deal. And that was the biggest move they had to make, and they got it done. The Bucs also placed a franchise tag on receiver Chris Godwin, which he did. He signed it. And they also re-signed tight end Rob Gronkowski to a 1-year, $10 million deal. They also got Lavonte David back on a 2-year, $25 million deal. And all this happened, all this magic happened was because Tom Brady restructuring his contract to create some cap space to make these deals happen in the first place. So I guess Tom Brady finally did something generous in his playing career. So I guess it's cool for the Bucs. So as for the Green Bay Packers, let's go to the NFC North for a bit. Their biggest signing for them is retaining their top running back, Aaron Jones. So Aaron Jones is getting paid 4 years, $48 million. So congrats to Aaron Jones, I guess. And oh boy. Oh, the Bears. The Chicago Bears. Just when you thought they were going all in on Russell Wilson, oh man. They instead signed former Cowboys backup Andy Dalton. Oof. They go from trying to get Russell Wilson to Now they have to sign Andy Dalton. Damn. And Andy Dalton is on a 1-year rental deal, like 1 year, $10 million. Yikes. Ryan Pace, man, what are you doing? What are you doing? So, yeah, Chicago Bears. Oof. Anyway, let's move on to Washington. The Washington nameless team signed former Miami Dolphins backup Ryan Fitzpatrick to a 1 year, $10 million deal. So a lot of backup quarterbacks are getting 1 year, $10 million deals. So interesting. The football team wasn't done there yet because they also signed Curtis Samuel to the former Panthers wide receiver to a 3-year, $34 million deal to, help Terry McLaurin, the Washington's other wide receiver. So good stuff there. As for the Houston Texans, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. They signed former Chargers backup Tyrod Taylor to a 1 year, $8 million deal. So I guess they're getting ready for whatever's going to happen to Deshaun Watson. And speaking of backups, the New Orleans Saints solidified their quarterback room in the wake of Drew Brees retiring. They re-signed backup Jameis Winston to a 1 year, $5 million deal, and Taysom Hill restructured his contract to a 4-year, $180 million deal. Now, okay, on the surface, yes, it looks, why the hell is this deal even a thing? But these are all non-guaranteed years, so don't expect the Saints to continue to go through with this deal unless if they're crazy as hell. So there are a lot more signings that happen and probably will be happening at the time this episode comes out. But to me, right now, these are the ones that stood out the most. And obviously, we'll get to the Niners' own free agency in a second and their own big moves. So let's talk some winners, losers, and some neutral teams. I really don't know where to put the neutral. I don't really know to term the neutrals. So winners, losers, and neutral in free agency. So let's start off with some winners. Obviously the big winner has to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady, I think he did the Bucs a big time solid, objectively, by restructuring his contract. So he can create some cap space for the Bucs in the short term and possibly even the long term. Again, I don't know how this cap space stuff works, but hopefully I will once I get more knowledgeable on it. And in return, the Bucs were able to re-sign Shaq Barrett and Levante David, two key pieces that were helpful in the Super Bowl run for the Bucs, and they earned it. They really earned their new contracts. And while the Bucs moves were few so far, they're hell bent. They're hell bent on repeating. They're hell bent on getting Brady not only more rings, but retiring in Cancun in peace. So another big winner is the Washington nameless team, and before I get into why they're big winners, they're getting a name. They're finally getting a name next season, this coming season, but in 2022. So the 2022 NFL season. So we finally don't have to simply call them just Washington. So let's talk about why Washington is winners here, in spite of the fact that Dallas is probably going to be back at full strength next season. It's because even though they got Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a good stopgap move at quarterback, and if they're able to get a quarterback in the first round, if they're able to trade up to get one of the top quarterback prospects, or hope that it falls to them, then yeah, it could be a really good 1 year rental for Fitzpatrick, and the football team, have Fitzpatrick mentor this rookie quarterback like he did with Tua, but hopefully Ron Rivera doesn't do that same shit that Brian Flores did by playing hot potato with Fitzpatrick and Tua like in the 2020 season. So, have Fitzpatrick start like a large majority of the games, and if he struggles, then go with the rookie, see what he's got. But go with Fitzmagic, see what he's got, and I think he can thrive well, even if we don't know what kind of Fitzpatrick we're gonna get. And now that they also added Curtis Samuel, a solid receiver, to go alongside Terry McLaurin, and whoever will be the quarterback, and as long as they like get more pieces on the offensive line, and not only do they have a solid offense, and as well as a competent offense, but if they can beef up the secondary a little bit, then you can compete with Dallas in the fight to repeat as division champions. So it should be interesting what they've got for Washington. Now, another big winner that I have here is the 49ers, but I will talk about why they're big winners in free agency, but in more detail. But I will say that whatever and however the front office was able to address their top priorities in spite of like the little cap space they had at $27 million, that's crazy. That's really crazy to me. But more on that later, though. So let's talk about some losers in this free agency so far. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys. And I say they're losers because of, yes, they got the Dak deal done, but the fact that they overpaid. They overpaid this dude. They overpaid for a guy that Jerry Jones has not supported over the years. Like, he is not surrounded talent around, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Yes, on the offensive side, you got CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. But, man, it's like there's only like so much Dak can do, but when your defense is failing, especially that was like so apparent when your defense, your secondary, was giving up so many points in the 5 games that Dak played. So hope if the Cowboys want to compete in 2021, especially with like the Washington football team that's slowly getting better under Ron Rivera, and they're continuing to add pieces, then the Cowboys gotta like beef it up on defense, because like, yeah, I don't know how Dak was able to like be convinced of, I want to be a Cowboy, and yeah, my defense was like hot shit, like in a bad way in 2020. But we'll see. Like, and we have to see like how Dak is when he comes back next season. So we'll see how this contract pays off, like in the long run. Another big loser is Jared Goff. I don't know how to feel about this dude, man. It's like I think for me, it's like I can't say if he went through hell. He went through good stuff. I think it's more like he went through a mixed bag. He was drafted first overall, but he was walking into a terrible like coaching staff because Jeff frickin' Fisher, and he wasn't able to like go through like a proper like rookie year, or like make some strides because Jeff frickin' Fisher. But then once Sean McVay came along, he got better, but not like, oh wow, he got Patrick Mahomes better, Deshaun Watson better. I'd say he improved like a lot. He improved a lot, and that's being generous. That's being really generous. And like he was like, so he was a good like portion. He was a good part in helping the Rams put their best season in years in 2018, going 13-3, and they got to the Super Bowl, albeit a certain no call in the NFC Championship game, and then to lay a big time egg in the Super Bowl, especially for Goff to no show against Tom Brady in probably the worst Super Bowl ever. That's sad. That's really sad. And then from that point on, it just went downhill from there. Like He significantly regressed in 2019, and he regressed even more in 2020. And Sean McVay started to change the offense from passing more like a passing specific offense to a more run oriented offense. And it was apparent that he doesn't trust Goff anymore. And once they lost that divisional game in Green Bay, he was like, I've had enough of this. Implicitly, he was implicitly had enough of Goff, and he made that notion even louder by sending his ass to Detroit for Matthew Stafford. Maybe the change of scenery helps Jared Goff, but we'll see. He's got to stop being checked down Charlie. He's got to return to form, 2017, 2018 form. We'll see what happens with Jared Goff, but otherwise, if he stays the same way he is, I know he has a much worse offense that he did in LA, but even with the receiving core that he has or the running game that he has, he's got to prove something. He's got to prove something in Detroit. Otherwise, the Lions are going to dump his ass just like the Rams did, and Goff will just be like a floater, a bust, and we'll see what happens to him. Another big loser is the Chicago Bears, specifically their fans. And I don't know, man. I will say this to Bear fans. I'm going to be sending my dearest condolences to all of you right now, because Andy Dalton is going to be your starter next season. Think about it. Andy Dalton and Nick Foles is your quarterback room. Andy Dalton's not the worst, but he's not good either. He's not a game changer. You saw how many times, how he was in Cincinnati, and you saw a good portion of him with the Cowboys. He's not a game changer like a Mahomes or Brady or Watson or even a Breeze or what other quarterbacks, a Manning. He's just an above average dude. I would consider him the more healthy Jimmy Garoppolo. But yeah, this team is not going anywhere in 2021, and you could thank your general manager Brian Pace for that. So yikes, it sucks to be if you're a Bears fan right now. So speaking of fan, let's talk about the Houston Texans. Yeah, it sucks to be both a Texans fan and to be the Houston Texans themselves. The Texans are making all these signings in hopes of trying to get Deshaun Watson to stay, but I don't think it's working. I really don't think it's working. It's evident that Tyrod Taylor, that signing, it's Texans preparing for life without Watson. I'm pretty sure that whether or not Deshaun Watson gets traded, he's not showing up to training camp this summer. He's not showing up to any games at all this season. So they're pretty much saying, well, if Deshaun Watson's not going to show up, well, Tyrod Taylor's going to start for us. So I don't know. I think the Texans should just pack it up, give in to Watson's requests. I know that all these sexual assault allegations are going on between Watson right now. But the sooner that Deshaun Watson gets traded, the less uglier this saga gets. Another big loser, probably my last one, is the Philadelphia Eagles. And I deem the Philadelphia Eagles losers because they overvalued Carson Wentz's trade value. They really did, because they wanted a first round pick at least, and no one bit at that at all. Especially the fact that Carson Wentz was often injured ever since he came back from that ACL tear in 2018. And I don't know how you would value Carson Wentz a first round pick after that. And he regressed after once he came back. He wasn't the same dude. And once they changed the price to second round picks as a starting point, only the Bears and the Colts offered the Eagles something, but ultimately it was the Colts that stood their ground, offered a 2021 third round pick and a conditional second round pick in 2022. So yikes. Like, the Eagles pretty much got a bag of potatoes in return for Carson Wentz. So that's not good. That's really not good. And I just hope that the front office better properly help Jalen Hurts with like receivers and O-line, because Jalen Hurts a bunch of receivers already, thanks to them releasing who is it, Alshon Jeffrey, and I forgot who else they released, but we'll see what else happens, because otherwise Jalen Hurts is going to be the next in line to wanting out of Philadelphia. So let's talk some neutral. Let's talk some neutral stuff. Like who I think neither won or lost, but remains to be seen following this free agency. And let's talk about the New England Patriots. And I thought that these signings were like kind of crazy when you think about it. With the Patriots, I thought, well, the Patriots rebuilt their team. Like, they got a bunch of these guys. I just think that Bill Belichick overpaid a little on some of his signings, like Hunter Henry, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Warren, especially Hunter Henry, considering that you got Jonnu Smith already, and you're going to be going back to that 2 tight end set that you had with Rob Gronkowski and I forgot his name. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. But that being said, going back to my earlier point, they still use that $69 million of cap space, and they pretty much retooled both sides of the ball, whether the signings were overpaid or not. So you got your new signings, you got your opt-out players coming back. Now it's just a matter of fact, can they all execute? And that remains to be seen, especially with the fact that you re-signed Cam Newton for 1 year, and that remains to be seen if he's able to return to form, at least some part of it, and if he can prove that he's not washed. So it's kind of like, you got to prove yourself, otherwise we're not keeping you after this year. So now that Cam Newton has even more offensive weapons, more people returning on both sides of the ball, the Patriots are probably going to get another quarterback, whether it's through the draft or free agency, to compete with Cam Newton. I'd say the Patriots may be back in contention in 2021, depending on how things go. Another neutral is the Arizona Cardinals. I think the J.J. Watt and A.J. Green signings are okay right now for the Cardinals, but I'm just waiting on the execution of how it goes on the field, because they're good players. They're good players, but let's remember that both guys haven't had fully healthy seasons in quite a while, and AJ Green didn't have his best season in 2020. So if they're not able to stay healthy, then they're not going anywhere in the NFC West. But if they are able to stay healthy for most, if not all, of the season, then they can be a threat in the NFC West. So we'll see how that goes. Now, let's talk about the Chiefs' offensive line, because I think they're another, they didn't win or lose this free agency. So the Kansas City Chiefs, they pretty much dismantled a good portion of their offensive line just 2 days, literally before the start of free agency and the legal tampering period. They released 2 key pieces in Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz to get under the salary cap. But in the process, they had no starting tackles on the roster. So they addressed that in free agency by going after Patriots offensive guard Joe Thuney. He got a 5-year, $80 million deal, and Thuney mainly, here's some things about Thuney. He mainly played left guard with the Patriots, but I don't know if he's going to transition to tackle or guard or remain at guard, and we don't know which side of the line he's going to play, but we'll see. And then the Chiefs also got former Bears guard Kyle Long, who's coming out of retirement. He signed a 1-year, $5 million deal, so it remains to be seen if Kyle Long can still play football. So regardless of this big signings, this O-line better protect Patrick Mahomes. Otherwise, he's going to be running for his life again, like he was in the Super Bowl. So my final neutral is the New Orleans Saints quarterback room, because they signed Jameis Winston and restructured Taysom Hill. They were wise moves, not like good or bad, but they were the smart move to make, because Drew Brees just retired, and the Saints like immediately had to address like who's going to be like at least a short-term like solution. Who can we like look at and like, you know, evaluate who could possibly be like a long-term starter for our team. And while Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill not the best answers, I think they can try to use the Saints as an opportunity to at least prove something, you know. So we've seen a good sample of Taysom Hill starting last season in the couple of games that Drew Brees was out, and the results were mixed. He was pretty much trying to be like the gadget guy that he was when Drew Brees was starting, and he also like tried to do too much as well. Meanwhile, with Jameis Winston, well, you've already seen like a very large sample size of Winston in his 5 full seasons starting for the Tampa Bay Bucks, and you already know how that went. he even got a 30 for 30 season in his final season in Tampa. So it'll be curious to see how he does under Sean Payne's guidance for another year, whether it's backing up or actually getting a chance to start several games. But we'll see who wins the starting job. I can't say like if either one will like make or break the offense, but for now, at least the Saints have some clarity, like some decent one in New Orleans. So there are a couple of top free agents remaining before we get into the Niner section of the program. At wide receiver, you got Kenny Golladay, Will Fuller, Juju Smith-Schuster, Antonio Brown. And at corner, you had Richard Sherman, Malcolm Butler. And at linebacker, defensive back, you got Jadeveon Clowney. So there are a couple of big name free agents out there. And yeah, those are my takeaways from around the league. And those are some of the big name free agent signings, in my mind, at least, that has happened in the last couple of days of free agency. And some of the free agency has cooled down a bit, like at the time I'm making this, but there's probably a lot of big news that's happened, or maybe none has happened. So there you go. Those are your big, biggest names, biggest takeaways, winners and losers, and neutral free agency around the NFL. Let's take a quick break. And when I come back, we'll talk specifically about the San Francisco 49ers own free agency. So stay tuned, stay locked in, and keep that lasagna very cold around wherever you are listening to this podcast. And keep it locked in, keep it cold, and stay tuned to Very Cold Lasagna. We'll be right back. All right, let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers. Now, if you missed my recap episode that I did about a month ago, I probably don't even remember what the hell I talked about, but I talked about the Niners having to address a bunch of things in free agency, like the offensive line, corner, safety, I think the defensive line, and quarterback, because, you know, Jimmy Garoppolo is he's very So the main priority was re-signing Trent Williams, re-signing a bunch of their other free agents, whether it was on offense or defense. And I gotta say, whatever magic that John Lynch and the front office did, they managed to do it. So let's start with some of the re-signings and restructures that they did, because the restructures were key in actually making all this work. So let's start with these re-signings and restructures, and then we'll go into the new additions, departures, and all that. So the biggest signing for the 49ers was left tackle Trent Williams, who played in the 2020 season. He re-signed like in the very early morning of when free agency was about to begin. So they got that deal done way before, like in the early hours of free agency, like way before it started. So he re-signed for 6 years, $138 million, but we'll get into that like the actual details of that deal in a second. But the important thing is the Niners got their man on the left side of the offensive line. So whoever's going to be at quarterback next season will have that left side of the line solidified. They also re-signed fullback Kyle Juszczyk for 5 years, $27 million. So he's a key part of that offense. Is coming back. I know saying, why are they re-signing a fullback? Kyle Shanahan uses a fullback like in different ways than other teams do. So good for them to actually come together and re-sign Kyle Juszczyk. Also, cornerback Emmanuel Mosley re-signing with the Niners to a 2-year, $9.3 million deal. And then cornerback Jason Verrett is coming back on a 1-year, $5 million deal. So he's kind of like, I want to take one more year to evaluate myself. I want to take one more year to prove something. So good for him. Good for him. And then you got a bunch of other 1-year deals involving Ross Dwelly, Marcel Harris, Ken Webster, DJ Jones, and running back Jeff Wilson Jr. So like a bunch of moves at various positions. So like you're getting a lot of depth reserve moves. So that's pretty good. And the biggest thing here, aside from the Williams and Juszczyk moves and the other 4 moves that I just mentioned, were the restructures of D Ford and Weston Richburg. I can't pronounce that right. But D Ford restructured his contract to a 2-year, $24 million deal to save $9 million in cap space. So he pretty much gave us, the Niners, more room to spend in free agency. So thank goodness for that. He's a team player for doing that. And Weston Richburg restructured his own contract to create $6.8 million in cap space. So Weston Richburg didn't play all of last season. I forgot what kind of injury he had, but it didn't look good. And there's been like speculation that he might retire. So that sucks for him. But he did us a solid by giving us more money to spend in free agency. So thank you to Richburg and D Ford for that. So in essence, we were able to get the center from the Atlanta Falcons, Alex Mack. He's a multi-time Pro Bowler, and while he's much older, he's still a very good center. He's also familiar with Kyle Shanahan. He played under him in that 2016 Super Bowl season with the Falcons, and you all know what happened with the Falcons in that Super Bowl against the Patriots, but I digress. So Alex Max is his deal is 1 year, $5 million. So it's kind of like a prove it deal. And they also got a outside linebacker, an edge rusher, Samson Ebukam. Sorry, I had to like enunciate that because I don't know how to say it. So he signs on for 2 years, $13 million. So he's a 2017 4th round pick coming from the LA Rams. He played 4 full seasons, and just looking at some of his highlights, he seems like a decent edge rusher that can help the defensive line. So I'm excited to see what he's got. And some of the players that are leaving, Kendrick Warren, I already mentioned him. He's going to the New England Patriots. Corner, Keller Witherspoon, he's going to the Seattle Seahawks. And defensive lineman and former 3rd overall pick from the 2017 NFL Draft, Solomon Thomas, is going to the Las Vegas Raiders. So my personal takeaways, like even with only $27 million to spend initially, now I know $27 million seems like a lot, but in the NFL, it's not really a lot. Like I would consider like the Patriots $69 million to be a lot, even in the reduced salary cap. That's a lot, but here $27 million was not a lot. So somehow, some way, the Niners were able to address their priority needs, like just like that. And that was mainly thanks to Weston Richburg and D Ford restructuring their deals, like to create cap room. And it'll probably affect the Niners in the future because, I think restructuring, extends like the cap space in the future. But in the short term, it helped us re-sign players like Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk, Emmanuel Mosley, Jason Verrett, and probably even more players down the line. We can either retain, add, who knows. On paper, like the biggest deals in Kyle Juszczyk and Trent Williams look like the Niners overpaid. Like, oh, why did we overpay for a fullback? Or like a tackle that's like 33, 32 years old. But when you look at the actual details of these contracts, they're not so bad. They're not really that bad. So I looked at a website called Niners Nation. It's like this blog and a couple other sources and reports. Let's look at Kyle Juszczyk's first. His contract is only guaranteed for 2 years, and the other 3 years are voidable, and only $10 million is guaranteed right now. So that's not too bad. That like the cap hit's probably not going to be that bad either. And again, Kyle Juszczyk his role as a fullback is not like how other fullbacks are in the league. As for Trent Williams, his cap hit is only under 10 million. It's like 8 million right now. So the Niners are still able to make some moves with about like 12 to 17 million left to spend. But obviously they got to save 9 million of that for their draft class. I can't pronounce it right now, but sorry about that. So not only that, the Niners, if they want to not retain Trent Williams after 3 years, they can pretty much void it because the 6-year contract for Trent Williams, pretty much it's 2 deals in one, pretty much. So Trent Williams pretty much signed a 2-in-1 deal because he signed one 3-year, $60 million deal. And the Niners have a team held option after the 3rd year. I think it's 2023, 2024. And they can choose to use it or not to pick up the final 3 years at $77 million. So interesting stuff there. And after 2 years, I think the average of his contract is $20 million a year. So he essentially he signed one fully guaranteed deal, and pretty much if the Niners don't want to pick it up, the other deal is like non-guaranteed. So pretty good stuff there by the Niners front office. Now that Trent Williams is signed, now that Alex Math is coming over for a year, as well as Mike McGlinchey, Daniel Brunskill, and whoever the Niners get, to have behind those guys, like, as reserves on the offensive line, there's literally no excuse for Jimmy Garoppolo, if he stays or not, to underperform or not consistently stay healthy behind that offensive line, because that line is stacked. That line is literally stacked. Now, yeah, you have to address the right side of the line now, but there's literally no excuse for Jimmy Garoppolo to play as bad as he did 2020, or, be the standing statue that he's been, like, his entire time with the 49ers. John Lynch should know this too. Hence why he kept Rosen, and he's looking at other backup quarterback options like Sam Darnold, Mitch Trubisky. Maybe he's going to go all in for Deshaun Watson in spite of the allegations. Or he's going for one of the top draft quarterback prospects not named Trevor Lawrence. So it remains to be seen if Jimmy Garoppolo is still the quarterback to start the season and still is underperforming. Many fans, as well as Kyle and John, are bound to be pissed off, and we'll see what happens by next season's end. So to pretty much put this episode on a close. I think the Niners need to still address wide receiver, slot corner. They need to address the right side of the line and get a quarterback, whether it's backup or say goodbye to Jimmy G. So we'll see what happens in the next coming weeks. And let's see what happens for the rest of the NFL. It should be one crazy or not crazy ride. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with the rest of the NFL. The NFL draft is coming up. And then obviously after that, there's nothing else happening in the NFL. After that, we have to wait more for at least preseason and then the regular season. So we're waiting at least 6 more months till the regular season. But, it feels good to at least talk some football here on the podcast. So for all my football fans and even all my non-football people, thank you for tuning into this episode of Very Cold Lasagna, talking some free agency today. I am your host, DylanLasagna. If you are not already, and you should, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, turn on the notification bell, so you can be notified of each and every upload that goes up on YouTube, and make sure you listen to me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor FM. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And as always, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your hot and cold takes on sports and wrestling in general, and we'll just see how the rest of free agency, the NFL draft, and the coming months fold out for as we march towards the regular season for 2021 in the NFL. So I'll see you all next time, and I can't wait to see what the next episode of VCL unfolds. But until then, see ya. Yeah, that's all I got for you. But anyway, I'll catch you all next time. Until then, peace out.